In a massive negotiation hall rigged with special water channels inside the Empire State Building, top generals, elite scientists, and world leaders from every major government sit tense, facing the ancient Homo Aqua representatives. The air crackles with stakes. Humanity's survival hangs on these power brokers hashing out terms with beings who ruled the seas before we ever walked dry land. But the Aquarius leader flips the script entirely. She halts the high-level chatter cold, ignoring commanders barking orders and politicians prepping speeches, and locks eyes on a nobody slouched quietly in the back row. A low-ranking clerk from the transport department, zero authority, no influence, no crisis training, just a paper pusher yanked into this mess by accident. The room detonates in stunned confusion. Despite furious pushback from Kate the commander and the suits, her call stands, thrusting this everyday clerk into the spotlight as humanity's shock voice on the world stage. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear, and a fishing crew casually tossed an empty plastic bottle overboard while working their nets. But the moment they tried to pull the net back up, a horrible scream echoed from inside it, as if some living thing was trapped in there. Onlookers froze in shock when they realized the fishermen had accidentally hauled up a terrifying deep-sea creature no one had ever seen before. Soon, the scene shifts to the nearby coastline, where a team of highly trained military specialists arrives in the small fishing village. They comb through the area, inspect the catch, and finally come face to face with their true objective: the strange sea monster the fishermen dragged from the depths. After killing it, the crew had smugly brought the body back home, dreaming about how much money they could make. The military, however, is far more interested in the creature than in any profit. In local legends, people call this kind of being a sea demon, a monster of the deep that belongs in myths rather than reality. But through the lens of modern biology, the experts classify it as a new branch of an existing species, nicknamed a water demon because of its habitat and abilities. At first, this discovery alone is not enough to fully mobilize the world's top agencies or spark panic. That changes when they discover something unnatural lodged inside the creature's body. A pearl-like object that clearly did not form there on its own. This pearl is too perfect and too deliberately placed to be a natural growth. It looks like food or a device that was intentionally embedded, almost like someone installed it there with purpose. The commander in charge decides they might be dealing with an entirely new intelligent civilization hidden in the ocean. He orders a detailed scan of the creature's body and insists on studying it more thoroughly. Once the crowd thins and most people leave, only Barkley, a quiet, nervous man, slowly walks up to the corpse. He silently bows his head and prays, feeling that, no matter what this thing is, it was still a living being that has now lost its life. That small act of respect, done when no one is watching, will later change the fate of the entire world. Later, Barkley's team and other specialists bring special equipment to the shoreline as requested by the commander. This device is a deep-sea communication translator, designed specifically to try to talk to whatever other water demons might be out there. Their hope is to establish peaceful contact with this newly discovered intelligent race, instead of starting with violence. They set everything up and wait, letting night fall over the quiet coast as soldiers stand guard over the monster's body. As the night deepens, the guards watching the corpse chat lazily, thinking nothing will happen. But during their casual conversation, something feels off. The hard cement beneath their boots suddenly softens, dark and wet, as if water is bubbling up from inside the floor. When they step on it, the ground behaves like a swamp, swallowing their feet as they struggle to move. Before one of the female soldiers even understands what's happening, her legs are already stuck and dragging her down. Just then, a shadowy black hand bursts up from the liquid ground and slams him down into the sinking sludge as well. When the strange dark flood finally calms, the hanging corpse of the water demon is gone, and so are both guards. Alarms immediately blare throughout the base, jolting sleeping soldiers out of their bunks and sending them running toward the containment area. When they reach the scene, there is no monster, no guards, and no sign anything supernatural happened at all. The wet, unstable swamp has dried and hardened back into normal cement, like nothing ever changed. Barkley, however, notices something odd under his feet and feels that the floor is not quite right. He digs at the ground and manages to pull a metal folding chair straight out of the cement. The commander grabs his walkie-talkie and tries to contact the missing guards, anger and confusion tightening his voice. Instead of a clear reply, he hears a faint, muffled response coming from somewhere below them. After checking and rechecking, they realize the walkie-talkie is transmitting from beneath the floor itself. The soldiers drop to their knees and desperately claw at the dry ground with their bare hands, scraping away dirt and dust. After a tense moment, they uncover something horrible. A twisted human arm jutting out from the hardened soil. Barkley later sits alone by the sea for a long time, shaken to his core by his first close-up sight of a corpse. The terror of that twisted limb, fused into the earth, sticks in his mind and refuses to fade. The commander is just as disturbed but also filled with questions. He and his team are not ordinary soldiers. They are United Nations intelligence agents, a secretive unit tasked with handling mysterious incidents that science can't explain. Under normal circumstances, everyone in this unit has already seen their fair share of supernatural horrors. Yet what happened tonight feels different. Even for them, this is new and terrifying territory. The commander starts to suspect that Barkley has been hiding something and presses him for answers. Barkley finally confesses that he is not a field agent at all, but just a civil servant from the department's office. The person originally assigned to lead this mission went on vacation, and Barkley was forcibly thrown into the role at the last minute. To make it worse, the only reason his name was on the internal list at all was because he temporarily covered for a colleague during a paperwork issue. Now he feels sick with regret, saying his intestines are twisted from stress, because he has never been trained to handle scenes like this. He admits honestly that he feels completely unqualified to deal with deadly creatures, strange phenomena, and life-or-death decisions. The commander listens, then calmly tells him that history is filled with accidents and coincidences. Behind every major event, there are often ordinary civil servants quietly standing in the background, witnessing everything. Suddenly, a panicked shout from outside breaks the conversation. An Homo Aqua has appeared nearby, and all the soldiers scramble to their positions, weapons raised and nerves on edge. Barkley retreats into his familiar role, taking out a small recorder to document everything like a clerk doing his job. While the two sides are on the verge of a brutal clash, the commander strides forward between them. He lifts his hand and orders the soldiers to lower their weapons, risking his own safety to de-escalate the situation. At the same time, he signals the technicians to power up the translation device they prepared earlier. The commander is the first to speak, using the translator to send a message of peace and goodwill. He makes it clear that humans wish to negotiate rather than continue killing. The Homo Aqua standing opposite them lets out a strange, layered sound from its throat, halfway between a growl and a language. Once the machine decodes it, everyone is stunned. The creature is accusing humans of murdering its kin. The commander pushes back, pointing out that Homo Aqua also killed 2 human soldiers, and on that basis the bloodshed is currently equal. From here on, he argues both sides should sit down and talk instead of escalating. But the Homo Aqua grows agitated, its translated voice rising in volume as it demands something more ambitious. It wants to negotiate directly with humanity as a whole, not just a single military unit. Just as everyone is trying to figure out what that even means, alerts suddenly start ringing from everyone's phones and devices. News notifications show the same shocking images. Homo Aqua beings are surfacing all over the world at the exact same time. They rise from harbors, rivers, bays, and coastlines, carrying themselves not like beasts, but like returning rulers reclaiming their domain. Their mass appearance sends a tidal wave of panic and debate through global society. Governments urgently want to understand their intentions and figure out whether they are enemies, neighbors, or something in between. Acting quickly, the British government offers to host the first official public meeting with Homo Aqua. Within days, engineers construct a special water-filled canal and chamber running through a major skyscraper, turning it into a hybrid land-sea conference hall. This building will host the historic first formal talks between humanity and Homo Aqua. Kate, now serving as commander of a joint international special forces and diplomatic team, is chosen as the chief representative for the human side. Even though her team does not officially belong to any single country, they are now carrying the weight of the entire planet on their shoulders. At this moment, they speak not just for nations, but for all life on land. Before the talks begin, technicians open the gates and start pumping seawater into the transparent pipes that snake through the building. The audience and officials watch in tense silence as the chamber gradually fills to the brim. Once the water level is high enough, they see several Homo aqua figures swimming swiftly through the pipes on the surveillance monitors, heading straight for the central hall. The first Homo aqua emerges from the water with a precise, almost military posture, standing upright like part of an honor guard. Two massive deep-sea beasts, resembling living war machines, rise behind it as if serving as bodyguards or symbols of power. Finally, a fourth figure appears, moving with calm authority. This last one is the chief representative of the Homo aqua side for these negotiations. Under the gaze of the entire hall, this leader slowly reveals more of its body above the waterline. Its form looks surprisingly close to a human's, with limbs, posture, and facial expressions that are eerily familiar. The level of expression and presence it displays makes it clear that this is not some mindless monster, but a highly intelligent being. Observers also notice something else. It seems able to breathe freely outside the water for quite some time. These two details, its human-like form and its ability to operate comfortably at the surface, prove that Homo aqua can move into the human world whenever they choose. With the stage set, the hall buzzes with anxious whispers as the talks officially begin. Representing humanity's intellectual community, Dr. John Nathan steps up to the microphone to speak first, trying to set a friendly tone. He warmly welcomes the Homo aqua delegation and starts to build toward a long, carefully prepared diplomatic speech. Before he can get far, the Homo aqua representative abruptly cuts him off. To everyone's surprise, the creature then speaks fluent human language, showing that it has studied and understood human communication more deeply than anyone expected. Thinking on his feet, Dr. Nathan changes strategy and decides to emphasize human culture and generosity. He presents a symbolic gift to Homo aqua, something taken from the highest point on Earth, a rare item said to carry a unique fragrance and meaning. He hopes this gesture will subtly show humanity's achievements, reach, and superiority without sounding openly arrogant. The Homo aqua representative, however, has brought a gift of its own. It reveals several lifeless young Homo aqua bodies, drained of vitality, and frames them as proof of human crimes. Its translated voice trembles with anger as it explains that these children should have grown up safely in the vast oceans, but instead died surrounded by human oil, poison, and waste. The emotional weight of this accusation hits the room like a punch. Dr. Nathan panics and tries to clarify that humans are already working hard to control and repair marine pollution. He insists that human societies are aware of the problem and have made progress. The Homo aqua representative has no patience for these reassurances and bluntly declares it has no interest in negotiating with him anymore. Instead, it points past the front row and singles out someone in the back. Everyone turns to see who it is pointing at and realizes, stunned, that the chosen human is Barclay, the quiet note-taker sitting in the rear rows. People whisper in confusion, unable to understand why such a small figure was picked in a room full of generals, diplomats, and powerful leaders. On the giant screen, footage appears of Barclay kneeling beside the first Homo aqua corpse and praying for it in private. The Homo aqua representative explains that only someone who respects the dead is truly qualified to speak for the living. In its eyes, Barclay's quiet compassion makes him more suitable than any polished politician to represent humanity. Barclay stands there in disbelief, struggling to accept that his humble, anonymous act has now thrust him into the spotlight of the entire world. Kate, acting as overall commander, is extremely worried about this sudden change. If Barclay says the wrong thing or shows weakness, it could ignite a war between humans and Homo aqua. The Homo aqua side, however, refuses to compromise, stating clearly that it wants to hear Barclay's own voice and opinions, not pre-written diplomatic lines. The pressure on him becomes enormous. Barclay has no choice but to rise and walk slowly to the front, standing face to face with the Homo aqua leader, Salt. He does not even have a proper suit. The Homo aqua reminds him that he was chosen specifically because of his humanity and empathy, qualities it values above status or rank. Barclay, though, shakes his head and says he is just an ordinary person who cannot possibly speak for all of humankind. The Homo aqua insists that this negotiation should be conducted under the eyes of the whole world. Kate, on the other hand, is bound by political realities and security concerns. She cannot allow the entire negotiation to be broadcast live with no filters, knowing how volatile the situation is. So, for the second day of talks, she compromises by allowing only 50 reporters into the hall, strictly banning any live streaming. Cameras can record but not broadcast in real time. Before Barkley goes back out there, Kate warns him repeatedly. He must stick to the prepared script shown on the screen in front of him. He is absolutely not allowed to improvise or add his own thoughts. Once again, the massive transparent pipe fills with water, and Salt glides into position in the chamber. Barkley appears much calmer than on the first day, trying to steady his breathing and follow Kate's instructions. He begins by echoing Kate's guided questions and preparing to read the official human demands line by line. Just as he is about to start, Salt interrupts him again. This time, she politely asks for a glass of water, stressing that it specifically wants ordinary water from the local river. No one can find a reasonable excuse to refuse such a simple request. Kate sends a squad of soldiers to the nearby river, and they quickly bring back a cup filled with murky, swirling water, stained yellowish by pollution. The Salt makes a disturbing request. It tells Barkley to drink the river water in front of everyone. Staring down at the cloudy liquid spinning in the glass, his expression shifts through shock, disgust, and fear. At that moment, fresh instructions appear on his display. He is supposed to suggest disinfecting or treating the water first, then smoothly pivot into talking points about environmental pollution control. The script tries to spin the moment into a policy speech. The Homo Aqua cuts him off yet again, saying it does not want to hear any more polished political language. It insists that Barkley should stop acting like a puppet reading lines and instead speak honestly. After a long pause, Barkley finally makes a bold choice. He removes his headphones, cuts himself off from the constant instructions, and decides to speak from the heart. The room holds its breath, knowing this could change everything. Barkley admits openly that humans have been foolish and selfish, chasing short-term profit while ignoring long-term consequences. For convenience and money, they have pushed the planet closer and closer to environmental collapse. His honesty is raw and painful, but it is also undeniably true. Salt listens carefully and then expresses genuine admiration. It says Barkley is its favorite human so far because he has the courage to face his own species' flaws. Barkley, thinking he has done well, turns around expecting approval from his own side. Instead, he finds the hall frozen in horrified silence, with officials staring at him as if he just betrayed his entire species on live camera. The talks are immediately suspended, and the meeting breaks up under a cloud of tension. From the human leadership's perspective, Barkley's emotional outburst has pushed humanity into an extremely weak bargaining position. With trust shaken, the special forces and diplomatic teams relocate to another city to regroup. There, scientists and analysts dive deeper into studying Homo aqua biology, trying to find any advantage they can. The political clock is ticking, and the negotiations cannot be delayed forever. Eventually, both sides agree to resume talks, with humanity trying a new strategy. This time, humans decide to take the initiative and present a concrete environmental commitment. Through Barkley, they promise to reduce pollution by 50% by the year 2065. After that, they say, cleanup efforts will accelerate even more as technology and policies improve. On paper, this sounds like a massive undertaking, requiring huge investments and global cooperation. But to Salt, the timeline is completely unacceptable. It points out that people are already dying every day from living in poison environments, both above and below the water. Waiting another 40 years for real change means sacrificing multiple generations to slow suffocation. It refuses to quietly accept such a distant deadline, calling it an insult to all the lives at risk right now. Barkley tries to explain that environmental restoration on a global scale needs enormous resources, planning, and manpower. Suddenly, Salt turns her head and stares into the air, as if listening to some distant signal. Outside, the entire city falls eerily quiet, with residents looking up at the darkening sky, thinking a normal rainstorm is about to hit. But what arrives is not water. Instead, a monstrous rain of garbage begins to fall from above. Plastic bags, bottles, aluminum cans, broken fishing nets, and all kinds of floating waste that humans had dumped into the oceans for decades come crashing down onto streets and buildings. Within moments, the city is plunged into chaos as people run for their lives through a storm of their own trash. The negotiations inside the tower are forced to stop because even that fortified building cannot fully ignore the disaster unfolding outside. Panic spreads as residents slip on slick layers of garbage, vehicles get stuck, and infrastructure begins to fail. People are horrified and confused, asking why waste that should be rotting at the bottom of the sea is now burying their homes. In less than half an hour, a once clean city is completely submerged under a carpet of trash, turning it into a garbage kingdom. Then comes the ultimate visual shock. The wreck of the Titanic, which has rested underwater for more than a century, suddenly appears upright in the middle of New York. Negotiations between humans and Homo Aqua resume once more. This time, Barclay's tone is far more restrained and official. He urges Homo Aqua to stay calm and avoid further large-scale retaliation, stressing that any impulsive action will cause massive losses on both sides. He's trying to prevent the conflict from tipping into full-blown war. From its perspective, it simply returned to humans what already belonged to them, their own dumped garbage and wreckage. Barclay clenches his fists, fighting down anger, knowing that his own wife and child almost died in that storm of trash. He has to swallow his emotions because any personal outburst could derail the fragile talks. Kate sends new instructions to Barclay through his earpiece and screen. He is to push for a formal ceasefire agreement. The message is clear: humanity does not want war with any race. Salt nods and says they are willing to stop attacking humans under certain conditions. The first is immediate cessation of all pollution of oceans and rivers by human activity, with no delays or half measures. The second condition is the formal division of the planet into separate living territories for humans and Homo Aqua. It insists that all oceans and waterways across the globe belong entirely to them, with no exceptions. Not only would human ships be banned from sailing on any sea, but even flying over ocean airspace would be prohibited. Almost every delegate in the room erupts in anger, unable to accept a future where humanity is locked off from the world's waters and skies above them. The Homo Aqua responds to their outrage with a chilling laugh that echoes through the chamber. For a brief moment, the negotiation room goes completely silent as everyone absorbs the gravity of the demand. Barclay quickly steps in, apologizing for the emotional reactions and explaining that the representatives are just overwhelmed. He tries to restore some calm and keep the conversation from collapsing. The Homo Aqua's voice then softens back into a more neutral tone. It reminds the room that it has only listed 2 conditions so far, and that the third one is actually the most important. Therefore, it demands the right to choose the location for their next major meeting. Coordinates appear on the screen, and everyone leans in to look. The chosen site is one of the deepest seaports on Earth, a place so far below the surface that even humanity's most advanced manned submersibles can only reach about half that depth. The message is clear: if humans truly want to negotiate as equals, they must be willing to go down into Homo Aqua's world, not just force Homo Aqua to come up to theirs. Faced with this daunting proposal, many officials hesitate, calculating the risks and technological challenges. Barclay, however, knows that refusing could mean the end of any chance at peace. After a heavy pause, he makes the daring choice to accept the condition on humanity's behalf. And with that decision, the first part ends with the promise that the next round of talks will take place in the darkest depths of the ocean. Stay tuned for the continuation of this underwater standoff in the upcoming part on next video.